Hi guys, how you doing? I'm Tom Portingale. I'm responsible for employer brand marketing at Nationwide Building Society. I've been in post about 18 months now. Just a quick bit of background, we are trying to effectively look for 6,000 hires per year. There's 18,000 staff, a big contingent workforce as well. And like most organisations, trying to find tech talent. So from an employer brand point of view, lots to get my teeth into, really. So that's me.
Apologies, anybody who has heard me speak this morning. So my name's Lisa Scales. I'm Head of Resourcing, Executive and New Talent at Severn, Trent Water. We make about 2,000 hires a year. We have about 7,000 employees, and yeah, we've got similar challenges in terms of employer branding and attracting skills.
Hi, I'm Lee Harding. I am Talent Acquisition Business Partner at TalkTalk. I've been there for 3 months. Prior to that, I was at Shop Direct doing all of their tech hiring. I suppose some of the challenges we've got at the moment in terms of TalkTalk is we're kind of doing two really big things at once. We're relocating our London office to Salford, bringing 400 jobs, the majority of which are tech, but then also building a TA function from scratch. So there's some of the challenges we've got over the next 6 months.
Hi, my name is Modiara Kamps. I am a global manager responsible for employer branding and internal comms for a company called Brand Loyalty. We have around about 32 locations all over the globe, 1,000 plus employees, and we're focusing on food, retail, and loyalty programs. But besides that, one of our challenges is also to hire tech talent, and being an employer branding manager on that side can be challenging and interesting at the same time.
Brilliant, thanks. Just very quickly, very big thank you to Modiara and Lee, who've actually stepped in today to cover some people who couldn't attend at the last minute, so thanks, guys. Got some questions starting to come in, so I think we'll just start at the top. When it comes to capturing diversity recruitment metrics, what do you believe the key things to include or capture are for new starters? Who's going to pick up on that one?
Seriously?
Seriously.
Oh, I need to stand up and reread the question. Okay, when it comes to capturing, what do you believe the key things to include and capture for new starters? Okay. Well, I would probably say everything that you do have to capture, in the sense of it's all anonymised in our process. So we always, we're interested, obviously, to capture what I would call the general stuff. But actually, one of the big things... Oh, he's just walking towards me with both his hands. Don't worry. That's quite scary. Actually, one of the big things that we capture from a social mobility perspective is actually whether somebody had been to university and whether they are first-generation university attendees or not. And we tend to target our social mobility cold spots in terms of attracting people from maybe backgrounds that are more diverse. So in terms of diversity metrics, yes, there are the general diversity metrics that we all ask for in terms of ethnic minority, gender, etc. However, I think this can actually span wider in terms of diversity from a social mobility perspective.
Thanks, Lisa.
Anyone else?
Be brave.
Right, I've done that one now.
Okay, Lisa's done her one. Great, thank you. The social mobility piece is really, I think, is really key. I think actually if you hit social mobility as a broader diversity metric, you kind of almost could improve your other metrics just by being more socially diverse.
Yeah, absolutely. So we ran some work experience programs over the last couple of weeks. The Social Mobility Foundation supplied the work experience pupils.
Yeah, okay.
They were A-level students. Every single one of them, I asked for a show of hands, and not one of them weren't doing science A-levels, maths and further maths, and all of them of an ethnic minority. So it was incredible. The smartest people in the building that day.
Yeah.
And these guys at 17 taking their A-levels. It's fantastic.
Oh, even smarter than you?
Massively. That's not hard.
Thanks, Lisa. So in a tech-focused recruitment climate, how should a company balance human interaction versus technology in terms of candidate experience?
I think I have an answer to that, or an idea about that
Yep.
at least. I think that if you look at tech in general, it should add value to candidate experience, but also to the internal experience of the recruiters, for example. One of the things that I come across a lot is that recruiters are afraid that technology will replace them. Well, it should actually facilitate them. And I don't think that technology can replace human interaction as well. So just to take an example, you see these upcoming tools where you can screen resumes. And I think that it's really useful to implement this kind of technology while the recruiter steps in at the moment that the selection already took place. And that's where the human interaction part is still really important, because tech cannot really replace, let's say, culture suitable candidates for the business. I don't know. Any
Just
thoughts?
to add to that, I mean, for me, I'd distill this simply, it's digital innovation, but still delivered with a human touch. And I think that's really important. You know, tech, remember, is only the enabler. It's not the silver bullet. And that human experience, candidate experience, is no different to us, you know, how we'd expect from a consumer perspective. So that personal touch from, you know, everyone through the supply chain, be it from your employer brand touch points all the way to your resourcing people in your delivery teams. Basic human interaction, I think, Jeremy, is something that we've lost a bit, and we use technology as a bit of an excuse for why that is. You know, time poor being one common thing I heard from a resourcing manager this week. And from a candidate experience point of view, that interaction at that stage is pivotal. You know, even if that candidate isn't ultimately successful, the way that you offboard that candidate will resonate with, you know, how they feel about your brand going forward. So, as I said, digital innovation, absolutely, but it has to be delivered still with a human touch.
The concept of offboarding candidates that aren't successful is a really, really unique one, of course, isn't it?
I think 9 times out of 10 as well, when it comes to poor candidate experience, it's because they apply for roles, they don't get updates on their application, or they speak to a recruiter and they don't get a call back. It takes weeks and weeks and weeks. 9 times out of 10, it comes down to the fact that recruiters just haven't got the time to respond to candidates. So if we use technology to free up the time of the recruiter, you know, doing a lot of the non-value added tasks such as booking slots in hiring managers' diaries for interviews, whether that's giving nudges to managers for feedback on CVs, all the non-value add stuff that is taking up all of the recruiters' time, even things going back to proper workforce planning. If recruiters know how many vacancies they've got coming up instead of being landed with 100 recs at one go, that's going to be the solution. Free up the recruiters' time, use tech to do it so that recruiters can actually spend time giving candidates a good experience.
Okay. Brilliant. Thanks, guys. How important is employee advocacy, especially employee-generated content, for employer brand activation on social media? Is it a fad or a trend? There's a lot of things there about employee brands.
A couple of questions in one there, isn't it? It's a really good one.
It is.
You know, I mean, ultimately, this comes down to sincerity for me. So I'm a big believer in storytellers, ambassadors, heroes, whatever you want to call them within your teams, you know, bringing the story to life, because they can do it much better and in a more sincere way than whatever the corporate machine might try and deliver. I think the challenge, you know, that I've had nationwide is how do you effectively keep them on point with the overarching company narrative, but without clipping their creative wings?
Yep.
You know, you don't want it to be, you know, promote them to go and post on social media, but then tell them what they can and cannot say, to the point where they're scared to hit the submit or enter button.
It becomes unauthentic, doesn't it?
Absolutely. So I think it's a balance, but ultimately, you know, how many times I've even heard it today, people buy from people. So, you know, this to me isn't a trend, but I think it's just about empowering your people to tell their stories in the right way. And if that is in the form of, I don't know, basic things like the production of an employer brand toolkit, if that's basic governance training around social media, give them the skills and the capabilities and let them fly with it. You know, that would be my say. So.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent.
I think I agree. I do have to add something regarding the trends. It's more moving towards consumer-centric marketing approach, to be honest. So also one of the things that are really upcoming is real-time stories, but I believe that you have to connect that with professional content as well. So it should be a mix because, you know, also even a potential client for the business can check out the employee content.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's a good link between the customer and future employee, I guess. Yeah, absolutely. Lee.
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said so far, and I think there's two more elements to it as well. There's the brand police that exists in every single organisation. I'm sure we've all been told off that at some point for something that we've posted on LinkedIn or Twitter or Facebook or whatever. I think the brand police kind of just need to take a step back and understand why we're doing what we're trying to do. But then for the employees as well, if we want them to truly, sell our brand to the market, they kind of need to know why we need them to do it. We talk about we have to upskill our hiring managers to understand why candidate experience is important, why they need to do things quickly. But people in the business as well, they've got day jobs to do. We kind of need to coach them as to why we need their help, why it's important, and just the impact they can have in building the team and the colleagues that they're ultimately going to work with. Because what's really interesting is I tried to do some of this a couple of weeks ago. I offered to do some training to people across the business. I posted it all over our internal comms and offered to do it. 2 people turned up. 2 people signed up for it. I think it's the why rather than the how is probably the first thing that we need to crack. Yeah. If anyone's got the answer, let me know.
I think there's an element here of going back to one of the previous questions around this is where there's a really good link between the people side of things and the technology, because it doesn't matter how much people want to advocate for you. You've got to make it as easy as possible for them. I think there's some good platforms out there that can help with that sort of social referral, that employee advocacy, and just really make it easy for people rather than the sign on the back of the toilet door about we've got a referral scheme. So it is about making it easy. Yeah.
Is this working? Yeah. Sorry. So I think there's also something here about everybody gets very latched onto employees, spreading stuff on social media and everything. And we all like to say that our 7,000 employees, everybody's a recruiter. Yeah. And I do think there is an education and with the business in terms of explaining that we are constantly selling our talent attraction strategy, and therefore they need to lock into that. And actually, it's talking to a mate down the pub. It's not even just, a lot of people don't tweet. A lot of people aren't on LinkedIn. There are a lot of people that have social interactions with everybody on a daily basis. So I would say that it goes further than just online in terms of unlocking your brand. I think it's how you speak about your business. I think it's how you, reinforce positive messages with your friends and family, and in your everyday life. Yeah. Not just very consciously, I must go onto Twitter and say what a fab place this is to work. Yeah?
Cool. Thanks for that, Lisa. Anything else anyone wants to add there? No? Brilliant. So next question then. So neurodiversity. Big organisations solving the challenge like SAP and Microsoft, but do we think we can make a significant impact across all organisations? Any idea where that came from? Thanks, Theo. Who wants to take that one on?
I'll look forward to your talk in a couple of weeks' time on this, Theo. Are you looking for content?
I knew it was you. It's a loaded question, isn't it? No, but I think all of us are absolutely in agreement with the challenge, but also the opportunity here, and share sort of Theo's thoughts around how we can make this happen and do it in a sincere way. I think, I can only talk from a nationwide perspective. Trying to recruit 1,000 tech people in the next 12 months is what the business has set our resourcing team, and there's lots of money being thrown at it, and they think that money is the silver bullet to then actually find and know, the top talent. And then many hiring managers within the tech space, I'd like you to look specifically for neurodiverse talent. And I want your attraction campaigns to also convey that Nationwide is a place for neurodiverse people to come and work. And the question that I've got, and the problem and challenge that I think all of us probably collectively feel is, you know, if we're not practicing what we're preaching, then we're already killing ourselves. So, you know, Nationwide has, to me, demonstrated a commitment to start the conversation on this, but then we're not anywhere near as developed or advanced as a Microsoft or a SAP in terms of what that workplace environment looks like, in terms of the actual assessment process. You know, even if I think 6 months ago, the application form still considered it as a disability. And, you know, that was something that, Theo, I know it would rankle with you, because many neurodiverse people consider themselves enabled, not disabled. So I think getting the basics right and doing that from within and working with those teams to make sure that everything from the workplace environment to the hiring manager's expectations in terms of assessment process to actually the onboarding to then actually working with neurodiverse talent is something that you need to nail first. And naturally, you know, don't be afraid to say that you're on a journey with this and that you're committed to it. But I do see instances of organisations who, you know, claim to have maybe have nailed this. And, you know, I'd love to know in reality if that's actually what it is. Because if you get it wrong, it costs you in attrition. You know, that's a financial cost, and it costs you reputationally as well. So, you know, that would be my slant on this, really.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else want to add anything? No. I'm almost tempted to get Theo up on stage to answer his own question. Guys, we've got a couple of questions left, but it'd be really good to get some more flowing on there. No question is too silly. You know, whatever you want to ask, please feel free to ask around this. Does anyone on the panel have any insight into how successful graduate recruitment and internships are for your organisation? I'm looking, yeah.
I think so. I think I have answered to that. So the company that I work for, called Brand Loyalty, we do a lot with data. I think we have around about data of 2-3 million grocery shoppers. And one of the scarcities in the labor market is data scientists, data analysts, etc. So what we did locally is that we decided to build a course in collaboration with a university so we can actually help students and introduce them into our field. So that's one of the things that's working really well for us, especially since we wanted to grow our business intelligence team. What we also do, for example, is that we give guest lectures at universities all over the globe and set up student projects. And it doesn't really matter what size you have, because if you think about it, students are the workforce of the future. So even though you cannot offer them an internship or a graduation product right away, it can really be beneficial, you know, when they are working for a few years and they remember your brand. And you know, yeah, I've had a lot of applications in the past where people just met us at a graduation event or an internship market, and they decided to come back and apply. So that, yeah, it's really successful. I don't have any specific metrics if that's the question, but anybody else?
Thanks, Modiara.
Yeah, so actually, what I probably would say is that actually our apprenticeships are becoming more successful than our graduates in terms of the programs we're running. And we are definitely tipping the balance in terms of how many on intake we are taking on an annual basis. Controversially, we have removed a degree requirement for our graduate programs and allowed those to be opened up to not only external people but also internal as well. So we are on a bit of a journey with it, but whilst also trying to tap into that very, very locked up levy, we are definitely promoting our degree apprenticeships far more. So we've just had 3 new starters into our legal team, and you know, they'll be solicitors when they finish their apprenticeship. The graduate program is still running, but again, something we are changing. We have recognised in the business, as I spoke about this morning with regards to technical skill shortages, we did have a generalist program, which was our business leadership program. And we decided that actually that program probably wasn't producing the leaders of the business that we want for the future.
Yep.
We're having a relook at that in terms of whether that actually continues, and actually whether we just organically grow our leaders by not having them on a specific program.
Okay.
Does that answer the question? Or
Yeah, I think so. I think
you
so.
asked the question. Does it answer? I've got some metrics. I just can't remember them.
Anything else you guys want to?
Yeah, go.
I think just exactly the same as Lisa, and just to add that I've noticed many more organisations now basing their criteria on skills and capabilities as opposed to those qualifications. I think that's really important. And as Lisa said, particularly an apprentice, though, I mean, this is the first year that we are now offering a level 7 apprenticeship, which I think is the equivalent to a master's degree, a level 7. So, you know, I think that is an indicator in terms of skills and capability to actually find the right personality and then you train from within, as opposed to being more important than, you know, what those qualifications are, hard qualifications.
Yeah, and just to add, we take a strengths-based approach on our assessment centres. So not interested in prior work experience. It is purely strengths-based, which we've identified for our business.
Good. Excellent. Thanks very much for that. Halfway through answering that question, Lisa, the next question came up on stage, which was why I was laughing. Okay? It says, why are most job adverts less interesting than the weekend train spotting with Andy Murray's mum? It wasn't laughing at your response. Anyone want to take that one on? It's a great question, actually, yeah.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting one. Well, more interesting maybe than Judy Murray. Actually, she is quite interesting she's quite psychologically interesting.
Female role model.
Anyway, job adverts. Yeah, we're all really shit at writing job adverts, and we don't bring to life our copy in a great way. But I think there is light at the end of the tunnel. A lot of our job adverts now are video adverts, and we would rather send out a video about the hiring manager actually talking about the job and bringing it to life. I don't disagree. I see job adverts all the time, and I see it in our own business. Generally, if I do see one that's published and I want to kill myself, then I'll probably speak to the recruiter and go, "Are you serious?" But we don't train people well enough. You know, that's the problem. We say to a recruiter, and I think, you know, we expect a recruiter to be this, you know, jack of all trades, master of none, and we don't do ourselves any favours. So, you know, I think we need to be learning how to write copy better, and but also allow people the freedom to write less boring adverts and go, you know, try and capture the imagination of someone.
Yeah, I agree. They are all shit, and I think it comes down to probably a few things. I think one of the main ones is the mindset of a lot of us when it comes to writing ads. I overheard someone a while back saying, "Oh, it's Friday tomorrow. It's my admin day, so I'm going to write some ads." And just seeing ad writing as, you know, a tick boxing exercise and get it done. And then I think a lot of it as well is we don't know enough about the business and the function that we're recruited into. We take a spec, we'll ask a manager, you know, what's so great about working here? Why should somebody apply for this role? And they'll give you something that's off the corporate website that nobody really cares about. We don't challenge them. We don't ask them proper questions. And then I think it also ties into the, you know, what we talked about earlier about social media and people being really nervous about what they can and can't say. It's the same in job ads. So people just play it safe. They'll oversell. They'll sell the dream to people rather than selling the reality. And the result is everyone's just selling the exact same message. And we just need to train people on how to write ads and why it's important. But yeah, Dan, they are shit.
I agree, Lee, that the notion of the brand police coming back. And because of that, what you get, lots of job ads that are quite parochial, quite self-indulgent. And when I think about, you know, if I'm a candidate and I want to hear up front, what am I going to be doing in my role? Yet 9 out of 10 job ads probably are reverse. It's about the company first. You know, so that's one thing. But I think also, you know, it's almost, Lisa's saying about the training. I think that's really important because where does a job ad come from in terms of its source? I think from a job description, an AJI, how many of our recruiters or our resourcing managers can have that challenging conversation with a hiring manager and go, that job description that you've created isn't fit for purpose. It's not going to resonate with the talent pool that you're looking to engage with. But I think that's the challenge for the resourcing team, particularly in our organisation, where they're strategic partners, not operational gophers, as opposed to that. There's a job description, and I set Friday aside to write some job ads based on the, and don't actually challenge the origin of where it's come from. So I think there's also that stakeholder management piece as well, but I guess that's tied up within the training, isn't it? Of how recruiters, resourcing managers, people in the delivery teams are actually interacting and positively challenging the actual hiring managers who, ultimately are the ones who are tasked with creating these AGIs.
We've essentially changed the role of a recruiter over the last number of years and still expect them to do the same, to do the same job essentially. I mean, there's much more around content marketing and things like this in the recruiter role now. But we can't just say, you're a recruiter, go and do that role without giving them the training. So
yeah. And there's some great tools, the operational tools, things like Cat Mapfield, the gender decoder. So catmapfield.com. Many of our tech adverts are very masculine. And a lot of the resourcing managers, because they're not content marketeers, but knew that they would look too masculine, but were struggling to understand, how can I change that and then positively challenge back? That there are good free tools like gender decoder tools, which resourcing managers can use to, sort of aid them in that process, because they're not experts, and nor should we expect them to be experts in everything. So
absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, well, maybe I have something to add to that. I do believe that recruiters, I've been saying this for a few years right now, that recruiters are being asked to be marketeers and to be sales and recruiters at the same time. But you cannot do all those things. I think that content creation is a specific skill. And if you would ask me, you should train your internal people to do it, but also talk with external vendors to just set up the basics. Because, if you look at your job ads, that's basically the first touch point, where you want to lure in your target group. So it should be attractive. One of the things that we did, being in a tech company, we decided to write a whole job ad in code. Basically, I don't know if you saw the talk from Vonk, but yeah, that's how we advertised it on Stack and on GitHub, for example. And you see that specific community is really attracted to new, funny ways, of job ads. Just be creative, but also don't be afraid to say, hey, marketing is not really my cup of tea right now. I'm willing to learn, but just look outdoors.
It's also something around team structure and the types of roles that you have in the team.
Yeah, definitely.
And taking the recruiter role and splitting it up and saying, actually, there's an admin piece over here that we've got an admin person to do. There's a marketing piece over here. So rather than training, actually buying in the right skills for the role.
Yeah, definitely. And I think in a lot of cases, companies in general should really realize that recruitment and marketing is just a different ballgame. Yeah. But, it's about internal convincing your stakeholders that they need to invest in it and what's the added value. But that's a different question.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, guys.
And test it, so A/B test it. Why not raise a duplicate rec and, put it to the test in terms of the old school notion of corporate waffle versus a slightly more radical candidate-friendly version and see which performs better. And I think, from that data, you've got ammunition then that helps, certainly with those conversations with hiring managers, is what's performing better.
I saw some a platform a couple of weeks back that was exactly that. And they'd done a load of A/B testing where pure text ads versus video content, etc. And they had almost, I think it was 200-300% upturn in the numbers on the video-based advert. And they ran it exactly the same time, exactly the same places against duplicate ads. So it's a really, really valid point. Thank you for that. We jumped up to one there around, I can't see it now, innovation in recruitment. There was one that had come up earlier. Were we able to get that question back at all, or I can't? Okay. Let's go for that. Who asked that one? It was around innovation. Who are the leaders in innovation in recruitment, I think was the question. Do you want to have a look at that one?
No one?
No one wants
to lay
claim to that one.
Yeah, no, there's some interesting stuff coming out. I'm not going to go down the AI route. It doesn't exist. It won't exist for another 10 years. Yeah, no, there's some interesting automation coming out. I've seen some really interesting chatbot stuff, which is helping to streamline high volume recruitment.
Yep.
So that's quite interesting.
Yeah.
I think that we are still really bad at the basics, and we all try and bling things up, and it's like pimp my recruitment process. And it's literally like, actually, do you know what? We're still talking about boring job ads.
Yeah.
So if we're still talking about boring job ads, we're really not getting some stuff right. So yeah, there's a load of technology, and all the vendors that are here today, go and speak to them, find out about it. But if you've not got your basics right, you know, just start again and get it back to basics. Sorry.
Slightly strangely, Lisa, because I actually took that question as which companies are being really innovative in recruitment at the moment. So which hiring companies? So I don't know. Again, whoever asked that question, it was which way was that aimed at? Was it that way? Was it? Oh, it's come back up. Okay. Who do you look at as the leaders in recruitment innovation? Which probably doesn't answer the question I've just asked. So.
Well, no. I mean, there's you can take an IBM with Watson. Yeah. And go, do you know what? They're doing some amazing stuff, and it is exciting, but it's not AI.
No.
It's augmented intelligence. It's not artificial intelligence. So, you know, we have to be very clear, and don't get me wrong, it's really interesting stuff they're doing, but I just think that we need to be very careful how we are interacting with this technology in terms of actually doing a good job for our businesses.
Okay.
Does anybody else want to?
No one else wants to add to that. Okay, brilliant. Thanks,
Move
Lisa, for that.
Move on.
I'm moving on. How do you promote diversity and inclusion without having surface-level tokenism? So how do you make it real, I guess?
Yeah, I think authenticity, and I think this goes back to the employee advocacy piece. You know, actually, you've got a business full of recruiters for you, and I do see a lot of tokenism around, and you know, all of a sudden a business changes their logo to a rainbow for a week, and you know, they're feeling like they're the most diverse organisation on earth. But saying that, actually you've got to embed it in your culture, and you've got to live and breathe it. So I think that the companies that you know, everybody's trying. Let's not be too harsh on people. Everybody is on a journey. They're on different stages of the journey. But I do think that you need to culturally have an organisation that absolutely lives and breathes it and believes in it.
I think some of it as well comes back to what Lisa was talking about earlier, the basics to enable diversity and inclusion. You know, if you're sitting down taking a brief from a hiring manager, and whether they ask for a computer science graduate with a 2-1 degree from a red brick university, all of a sudden you've wiped out a huge demographic of people that will never be suitable for your business. And then likewise, you know, if you're looking to recruit, I don't know, buyers or merchandisers, and you're saying they must be interested in fashion and they must work at a retailer, again, you're wiping out probably an entire agenda by saying they must be interested in women's fashion and they must work in a retailer. It's really getting under the skin of what good looks like. What are we looking for that will really help us break through? You know, even some of the things at the start of the process that just encourages ruling people out of the process because of what we say we're looking for. We crack that, get the basics right, then that will be a real enabler to help get more diverse people into our businesses.
And I'd probably just add on top of that, really important as well to have an awareness of, you know, what the organisations that you work for are already committed to, signed up for. So, I don't know, little straw poll, how many people here work for an organisation of over 200 people? Majority of you. So straight away, your companies are having to declare gender pay reporting each year. So just be minded about what your corporate objectives are and what your PR team are saying around their commitment to diversity. What's your annual report and accounts? You know, what's your CEO or your chairman actually prophesies and will be reality in 12 months' time? Because there can't be a disconnect between what those corporate targets are and ultimately, you know, what we're trying to achieve in a resourcing space. And also, candidates aren't stupid. You know, when they go and research your organisations, they will find that information. And if we don't have the answers of, you know, A, being aware of it, and B, how are we actually looking to actually, you know, work towards those targets, and, you know, we're missing a trick again.
What do you think of the concept of targets for D&I? Any thoughts on that answer?
Well, I think that you should not really write a strict policy around it. It has to go organically. The company where I work for, we have 38 different nationalities and 35% women in tech, which I'm pretty proud of, to be honest.
Yep,
but it's not something that we, you know, set as a goal specifically. But it's just, you know, talking about with your employees, setting up some internal work groups and things that making people aware of it. And that was it, basically. So, yeah. But I know that there are also bigger companies that have a really strict hiring policy around it.
Yeah.
But I'm not always convinced that that's the best way to go.
And I think it comes back to what we've said as a panel, which is if it's not the reality, you know, what you're saying outwardly isn't the reality, you know, when people are joining, they're going to leave, you know. So why ruin that candidate experience and kill your self-reputation in the long run?
Yep. Okay. Lisa?
Yeah, we don't really have any defined targets as such, but at the senior end, we do try and ensure that we have a balanced shortlist from an executive point of view. And we will also, again, not really define targets, but we will have a aspiration if we have a hotspot in the business that we see that is heavily balanced either way,
Yep.
to try and get some balance.
Yeah.
But I don't think, I think targets make things very prescriptive.
Yep.
And sometimes it's necessary, and I get that in certain industries, but for us it is more about understanding where our weak points are and knowing that actually we should address it.
Yep.
It's fair enough.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Should companies share silver medalists with other organisations to improve candidate experience?
So the interesting thing for us is well, there's a GDPR risk there anyway. But if you've got the candidate's permission to do so, then I don't think it's not something that we do. It is something that we have looked at in our supply chain.
Okay.
So that, but the reality being is that we should be utilising our silver medalists for other roles anyway.
Yeah.
So I like the concept, and it is something we're looking at with our wider supply chain. But yeah, there's probably something there about utilising your own candidates better,
Yep.
especially if they're silver.
Yeah.
Maybe not so much for bronze.
Nothing on that? No? Good. If you could add one new piece of tech to your recruitment function, what would it do? So not specific brand, but I'm guessing that is, but what function would that piece of tech have?
I might build it. So I'd quite like some robotics that would go across a process and see where the weak point is in the process.
Okay.
Collect the data and go, that's where your problem is.
Yeah.
So the problem is from when the hiring manager, you know, looks at a CV, by the time they've looked at it and by the time they've fed back, that's too long, and then you could report on that on a daily basis. If anybody would like to build that, I will buy it.
I would definitely go for a recruitment function that would save me time in all ways. So I have more time for human interaction and analyzing the data.
Yeah.
So time-saving tools, please.
An ATS that will spit out some decent reporting. How many of us spend time in Excel, just messing around with filters and pivots? If someone could build an ATS that will just spit out reporting straight away, that'd be awesome.
I think for me, so we just relaunched our careers website last week, and one thing I'm minded of is the UX and the UI. You know, it's all well and good having a new website, but actually test, learning and iterating in real time, improving it. I'd love something that can provide me instead of spending tens of thousands of pounds on bespoke user testing, something that could automate that and provide you with that MI so that you could, tweak the website as,
So
to reflect.
continual testing
Yeah.
on it. Yeah, cool, excellent. Okay, good. I'm actually going to jump down to one of those. So what trend in in-house recruitment would you most like to see stopped? Go,
People
Lisa.
talking about AI. Stop it. It's not here.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. We're not there yet.
Anything specific? Any other specifics? No? Okay. Can any of you share best practices around streamlining your onboarding process and making it as effective as possible to create the ultimate candidate experience?
Yeah, I can.
Good. Thank you,
Buy
Modiara.
an onboarding app. Stop building and doing it yourself. Just accept the fact that there are specialists in this field. Again, I'm so sorry. But yeah, just go for it. Like, we bought this onboarding app because we were onboarding around about 15 new employees every month. And it's chaotic. And you should just, regarding best practices, if you talk about onboarding, also think about your internal stakeholders. Think about the team that is involved with a new hire. Think about the hiring manager that, also needs to welcome the candidate. And this is where a lot of onboarding tools can help you with, definitely.
We've said already, the offboarding as well.
Yeah.
And I think there are tools on the market which you can use not only for onboarding, but can help you with the offboarding and also alumni.
Yeah.
So when I think in a tech space, and we heard that great case study with Vonk and Reddington of how software engineers have got a job tenure of no more than a couple of years, and it's not because they've got an issue with your organisation, they just like to move around. So there's lots of really cool onboarding tools which you can also slightly change and nuance to work for your alumni audiences as well.
Yeah, and I think there's something around, actually, if you are trying to improve a process, whether that's onboarding or at the beginning of the process or your career site or whatever, do your research. Go and speak to the people that have been through the process. I love it. Everybody's like, yeah, we're going to huddle around and we're going to get loads of post-it notes and we're going to really get this process sorted. Don't go and speak to anyone. So we don't get any proper in-time, real-time feedback. And actually, process redesign is really difficult without understanding the personas that you are recruiting for and actually listening to that.
Yeah.
So what you may perceive as an amazing experience might actually be a complete and utter ball ache.
Yeah. Okay, excellent. How do you really, in capitals, differentiate your employer brand for tech talent, aside from common themes such as trendy offices, pool tables, games rooms, socials, etc.?
Yeah, I think that everybody has that, especially working in Amsterdam right now. Everybody has a pool table and a game room. So one of the things that we try to do is just showing the new and latest tech that we are working with. And then it comes down to being really specific. So, for example, we try to build a new feature connecting that with voice marketing, like Alexa, Google Home kind of things, and just, say that, present that to the world. So yeah, just be really specific sometimes and be transparent about what you're doing, even though it can be a bit scary for the business goals, but yeah.
I'm going to be slightly controversial here, because my first question would be why? As in, why would you want to separate? It may be there's, reasons for that, but, I think a lot of it, Lisa's mentioned, for example, about research and testing it externally. So if I think in a Nationwide instance, Nationwide's known for mortgages and savings. It's a mutual, it's not a bank. We don't have shareholders. The perception for the tech hiring managers was we need all the shiny new offices, we need pool tables, we need to make it look like somewhere that you'd find in Shoreditch. And the external research actually said, yeah, we want the latest tools to use to enable me to do my job, but the reason why I might work for Nationwide is because you're not a bank, and I like your culture, and you're not profit driven. So my point being is that, this is effectively your micro EVP, so don't discount that there are things from your overarching EVP which still would resonate with that tech talent. you know, they're not mutually exclusive. And there are bits that are consistent, which really do chime with tech talent. So, you know, don't view it as because your core employer brand doesn't sound sexy enough to be able to attract and convert. I think it's just about understanding which bits still resonate, but test it again. A lot of this is inside out, and I don't see many organisations doing the outside in, so go and do that external research piece.
I think some of the things that I've tried in the past for tech talent that's worked quite well is using the tech people in the business, whether that's video, stories, blogs, articles, but getting them to sell the reality. You know, I've worked for businesses that are the very, very old businesses, which means we've got a lot of legacy tech. So why, when we're trying to attract candidates, would we not tell them about the legacy tech? We just tell them about the latest bleeding edge stuff that we're doing, and then they come in, they join the business, realise that they're going to spend 70% of the time working on legacy stuff, and then leave. Tell them about the legacy stuff, tell them about the journey that you're going on, and where you're trying to get to, because then you're going to appeal to the right target audience rather than trying to appeal to everybody. So yeah, use your people and just sell the reality.
Okay. Thank you guys, thanks for that. A couple more questions I think we'll have time for. I'm going to drop down to the third one there because we've done a fair bit on onboarding and a fair bit on apprenticeships, but how do you differ internal recruitment from external recruitment? Do you follow the same process for both?
I mean, it's really, really interesting. So because I've only been at TalkTalk for 3 months, but one of the things that's absolutely blown me away so far is the number of vacancies that we fill internally. So currently 40% of all of our vacancies are filled by internal talent. And that's not just people stepping up ladders, it's people moving across different functions of the business. And we've not actually got something set up yet, which is why it's blown my mind. There's no formal process. There's no, this is how we do things for internal candidates. This is how we do things for external candidates. In the past, I've seen one of the things that has worked really, really well is really separating them. One of the things we used to do at Shop Direct when we were looking at internal talent was, especially in tech, it's why are we going to assess them technically like you would for external candidates? Because that's what we used to do. We'd give them the same technical test that we'd give external candidates. And it's why we already know they can code because they're in our business working with the tech we need them to work with. So I mean, that's an obvious one. You know, it was just strip that out completely. But then I think one of the things that businesses really need to get over is this whole, you can't headhunt internally. Why not? Why can't we go out and headhunt people internally in the business that we would know would be great for a role over there, but we can go and do it externally? I think businesses really need to get over that and just encourage the internal movements rather than different functions trying to keep hold of their star players. That would be the big one for me, is encourage internal headhunting.
Shall I go? Okay, so two of the things that, well, the first thing that absolutely astounded me when I started at Severn Trent, we had this ridiculous process called straight to offer for our internal candidates. And I scratched my head and I said, so what are the principles around this process of STO? And basically it was a case of, if you've worked in Severn Trent and you quite fancy a job in a different directorate, you could go and apply for that job and you wouldn't have to go through any process. So that stopped immediately. And another thing that I stopped immediately was I was, again, looking at the recruitment team, and we had 2 internal recruiters just doing internal recruitment. Okay. And I was like, right, okay, I need you to look across the whole talent spectrum. I don't want to just look at 2 internal candidates. And bearing in mind, 2,000 hires last year, we had 934 internal hires. So we've got a really good internal mobility process, but it just didn't seem fair. The straight to offer process, I was like, not fair, don't like that, remove it. And then again, this internal recruitment team, I was like, your recruiters just internally? And they were like, yeah, and we run all these amazing get a job workshops. I was like, stop that, become a recruiter, and if you've got internal candidates and you've got external candidates, I'm looking for the best talent to fill that role. I'm not interested if they're internal. I appreciate if they're internal, there is a commercial aspect of reducing their their time to productivity is faster, etc. We like to retain our people. Our culture is extremely good. People want to stay with us. But let's have a fair and transparent process as opposed to this backdoor and this ring-fenced sort of special way to do stuff.
Getting the best person for the job.
Getting the best person for the job is ultimately what we're here for. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, to add to that, what we did, we set up an internal recruitment process based on the fact that we were growing super fast and we got complaints regarding the internal development possibilities within the company. So what we did is that we set up an internal recruitment page where people could apply for 4 weeks before we set out the vacancy externally. And next to that, we've written a policy for hiring managers on how to handle their staff applying for another role internally or in another location, because that's also something that is forgotten quite a lot, that it can be a bit scary to go to your team lead and say, I'm really interested in working on the team that's on the other side of the room. Yeah. So it's also about, informing and training people about that too. So yes, we have a different process. It's also a bit shorter, but I totally agree with what you said about it should be fair. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, guys. I think that's it's very nearly lunchtime, and there's some really good questions still up on there. Do we have a feedback slide over for this session as well? We don't. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone, particularly our panel members, and for the questions that came in. Thank you very much. It's been very good. Enjoy lunch, and we'll see you after lunch.